This was originally going to be a top 10 video, as I usually do, but then I realized I felt a lot more strongly about the first 5 items on my list than I did about the last 5, and I thought, let's just cut it down and talk about the ones I'm really passionate about. So maybe as I get more into anime and try out different shows, I will make a second top 5 with other ones that I love, but for now this is what I've got. Hello everybody, my name is Danny and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my 5 favorite anime / manga. I've seen all of the anime for these. I have not read all of the manga for them though, which is why I'm kind of putting both down in the title. Now, if you know me, you know that I love anime, but this really only started about a year and a half ago. I did watch it quite a bit in middle school, but that was like a decade ago, literally, and I grew out of it when I got to high school. But then I started dating my boyfriend a couple of years ago, and he was really into anime, and so that kind of got my interest back to it. And then at one point, I was watching my friend play the Naruto video game, and I was getting super into it, asking questions about the story and all of that, and it made me want to watch the anime, which I did starting last January. My boyfriend and I watched it together, and it's just been going on from there. I've watched so many anime and read so much manga since then, and I just can't get enough. So I thought I would take today's video to tell you about some of my favorite ones, and maybe you'll find something that interests you and you want to check it out. First up, I want to talk about Demon Slayer by Koyoharo Gotoge, and I just want to say right now, I'm probably going to mispronounce some names in this because I do not speak Japanese as much as I wish I did, and I apologize for that. So, Demon Slayer follows Tanjiro, a young boy in, I forget which era it is, but I looked it up and it's like early 1900s Japan. After, this is a spoiler for the first episode, his family is brutally murdered by a demon, and his younger sister Nezuko is actually turned into one, and so he wants to get revenge for the murders of his family and help find a way for his sister to become human again. And so one thing that I absolutely love about the story is that, like most stories, love is at the core of the character's motivations, but in this case it's more familial love rather than romantic, which isn't something you see very often. Literature is very saturated in romantic love, which, don't get me wrong, I will read that and I enjoy it very much, but I just really love the way the family dynamic between Tanjiro and Nezuko is done in this, and it's so good and I can't get enough. I also absolutely adore the art style. Now, Tanjiro studies to become a demon slayer, hence the name of it, and the way demon slayers work are different styles of fighting, and he does water breathing, which basically all of his attacks are water-based, and the way the water is differently animated than the rest of it, and when there's characters who use fire, the way their fire is animated, it's just so stunning. I love the contrasting art styles, and it just looks absolutely beautiful, and I love it. I also want to talk about the Hashira for a second. The Hashira are the masters of their different styles. So there's a water Hashira, a flame Hashira, an insect Hashira who does insect style fighting, and so on. There's, I think, 10 of them if I remember correctly, and I just really love their characters. I think they subvert some tropes and expectations when we first meet them, and I kind of want to make an entire video dedicated to them, so let me know if that's something you guys would be interested in. And finally about this, I just want to mention how I love the way the 4 main characters play off of each other. So you have Tanjiro and Nezuko, and then you also have Zenitsu, who is another demon slayer around Tanjiro's age, and he's a scaredy cat. He uses lightning style fighting, but he hates fighting, and he's scared of everything, and he kind of just wants to die so he doesn't have to be scared anymore, but he's more than meets the eye, and he's really cool. I really like his character. And then there's also Inosuke, who didn't officially become a member of the Demon Slayers, and he kind of also made up his own beast style for fighting, and he wears a boar's head on his body, and he's just very aggressive and violent, and I love the way the 4 of them all deal with each other and interact. It's so interesting. Next, I would like to talk about Full Metal Alchemist by Hiromu Arakawa, and this tells the story of Edward and his brother Alphonse and their studying of alchemy. So I really love alchemy. I think it's absolutely fascinating, and so of course I would love a story that centers around alchemy. And another thing that I really love about this, besides the basic premise, is the disability rep. So as you can see, Edward's got a metal arm. He also has a metal leg. This is because of some alchemy, I don't want to say shenanigans because it sounds really lighthearted, and the way it happens is not really lighthearted, but some stuff happens and he loses his arm and his leg and is outfitted with automail, and his brother actually doesn't have a body and he is a soul tethered to a suit of armor, and there are so many other characters who have different prosthetics, and I think the representation of people with prosthetics and chronic pain is done so well in this series. It also has some really good mental health rep, as the characters deal with guilt and grief and other big emotions like that. I think that's done so well, and the characters are so well written. And like Demon Slayer, the love at the center of the story is familial between Edward and Elric, the brothers, instead of being a romantic love, and as I've said before, I just can't get enough of that. Next, I would like to talk about Mob Psycho 100, which is by the manga artist known as One, and this story follows Shigeo, also known as Mob, a middle school boy with extremely powerful psychic abilities. And I absolutely adore Shigeo. He's one of my favorite characters of anything ever, and I 100% believe that he is autistic, and I will die on that hill. I see so much of myself in him, and he is my son, and I love him with my entire heart. He's such an amazing character, and I love him. If you didn't get that from the first 6 times I said it. I really like how this story shows a character like Mob with such insanely powerful abilities and balances it out with showing how his abilities can't get him everything in life. There's one really funny scene where he's talking to his brother Ritsu, who really wants psychic abilities but does not have any, and he's like, "Wow, Shigeo, you really can get anything," and Shigeo is like, "Nope, not everything," and Ritsu says, "Well, what can't you get with your psychic abilities?" And Mob's answer is simply muscles. It's such a comedic moment, and there are several other moments like that where you see that even though he has such strong powers, he can't get everything he wants because of that. And so, is anyone even surprised when I mention how much I love the relationship dynamic between Shigeo and Ritsu? You shouldn't be. I love sibling dynamics, as I've mentioned with all three of these stories that I've talked about so far, and as I've talked about in so many other videos. Sibling relationships and just familial relationships in general really are my favorite thing in stories, and I can't get enough when they're well done. I also really like how in this story it shows these characters learning about themselves and really stepping up and coming into themselves as people. And it shows that even when it's hard to figure out who you are, it's something that you really should be doing, and I think it's very well done. Next, I'm going to be talking about a show that I have not read the manga for and don't own any of, and that is One Punch Man, which is written by One, the same guy who wrote Mob Psycho 100. And this follows Saitama, who becomes so insanely strong that he is able to defeat any monster with just a single punch. And this causes some problems for him because he starts to feel like nothing is ever a challenge anymore, and it kind of makes him depressed, which sounds really sad, but it is really sad, but it also plays out as like comedy in the show, and there's that like dichotomy between this that I really like. At one point, he takes on an apprentice in the form of the 19-year-old cyborg Genos, and I have so many feelings about Genos, I can make an entire video on him. I won't go into details here because this video would already be like 20 minutes long if I just talked about Genos, but I really love his character and I think he's absolutely fascinating and I could talk about him forever. And so if you decide that you want to watch One Punch Man and Mob Psycho 100, I strongly recommend that you watch One Punch Man first. I feel like it's a better way to break into this sort of art style and the way One writes his stories. And Mob Psycho is definitely more my favorite than One Punch Man is, but I feel like if I had watched it before watching One Punch Man, I wouldn't have liked it as much, because One Punch Man kind of eased me into the weird way that things work out in one's stories. So, just some food for thought there. And last but not least, I would like to talk about Jujutsu Kaisen by Gege Akutami. And this follows Yuji, the boy on the cover of this volume, as he learns about cursed spirits and accidentally ingests one, and so he's training to fight and exorcise them. So I really love how this is like a monstrous fantasy, but set in modern day Japan. I think the story takes place in either 2017 or 2018, which is when the writer first started writing it and publishing it. And it's just not really something you see. I mean, One Punch Man and Mob Psycho 100 both take place in a modern day Japan, but it's more like an alternate universe type of Japan rather than our real world like it is in Jujutsu Kaisen. And I just think it's really cool how it's got this monstrous element that's blended with real world society. All of the characters in this are also so unique and fascinating. And so, like I said, Yuji has this cursed spirit inside of him, and so it manifests in really weird ways, like having a mouth on his hand. That's not his own mouth, that would be weird. This is the mouth of the cursed spirit that's inside of him. And then you have characters like Megumi, who has these like shadow puppet kind of creatures that's so fun to watch. It's something like I wish I had come up with. Like, I love it that much. And then there's Maki, who is my favorite character in the show, and she actually has no cursed abilities of her own. She actually needs glasses in order to even see curses, and she fights them with cursed weapons. But there's like this trade-off where, because she doesn't have any cursed abilities of her own, she's insanely strong and agile and just an amazing fighter, and I love her so much. And every character has their own little quirk, their own way of fighting curses that is just absolutely fascinating, and I love seeing how they work together and balance each other out in fights. And I actually loved all of these characters from like the moment I met them. I started reading this on a whim because my boyfriend really loved it, and he bought the first volume of the manga, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm bored, why don't I start reading this? And I was obsessed from the very first page. Yuji is such a himbo, and we support that, and seeing the way he reacts to everything and how he like deals with his problems is really cool, and I love that he's the main character of this story. I love seeing the interactions between all of the characters because it's clear that all of the unique relationships were so thought out. And so that was my top 5 favorite anime slash manga. If any of these sound interesting to you, I highly recommend you check them out, and then let me know what you think about it. I will gladly gush over any of these stories with you. And if you watch anime, please give me recommendations. I will always take more. And also let me know if you'd like to see a part 2 to this, to hear me talk about any other anime slash manga that I eventually end up getting into and loving. So if you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and you can subscribe to my channel for more content, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!